said was the word. 33 years he tabernacled the earth, healing the sick, raising the dead, sight to the blind. In the city of Canaan turned water to wine. He did live, he did die. 3 days later Jesus Christ did rise. Did it for me and you, this is the truth. Early Sunday morning the grave let him loose. The sting of death over, death couldn't hold him. Prophets all told them, on didn't know him. God had to show them, he's the high priest, he's the king, he's the chief. Angels do sing, holy, holy, holy. That's their song, he's on the throne.
Thank you so much for being a part of our very first Thirsty Thursday. So glad that you're here. Thank you again so much. But don't stop right here. We ask that you interact with us via Facebook, Twitter, or our church website. Hang around a little while. Don't come and leave. But we thank you for coming anyway and spending time with us. This morning I thought it would be good for us to start talking about the importance of thirstiness. The importance of thirstiness. One of the primary symptoms for you and I to rush to the doctor is the loss of appetite. That's because you and I understand that our bodies must have food and water. As a matter of fact, when we don't have food and water, you know that we die. And so thusly, we eat then in order to live. Some of you are guilty like me of every now and then living to eat. But nevertheless, the moment we realize that our appetites are gone or are leaving us, we should be concerned because our days here just may be numbered. Which reminds me of a story here in Dallas last month that was covered on all major news stations here in the DFW area, where a young 10-year-old boy was being deprived of water for 5 days by his parents. Needless to say, his body dehydrated, and slowly his organs began to deteriorate as his body was wanting water and thirsting for water. His organs were decaying and decaying, and eventually he died. But his parents ended up in jail, and something about this story, I just couldn't let it go. I guess because it was such a horrific event that parents could see and cause such excruciating pain in the life of their own child. And then I had this life moment, this life question came to me. How many people around me that I love, around you that you love, or maybe it's you yourself, that are walking around day to day spiritually dehydrated? The inner man just weak, looking for some type of substance. But all we feed is junk, gossip, and whatever we want out of life. Which caused me to look at the Bible and try to find a place that gives us some type of direction on how we can saturate that thirst. You could look at Psalm 63 verse 1 with me. Psalm 63 verse 1. Psalm 63 verse 1. It says, "O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you, in a dry and weary land where there is no water." This psalm is amazing to me because it's written by a man named David. He's God's man. He's a king. He's all of that for God. But the problem is, even though he's doing what God wants him to do, following God's blueprint, he still says he's in a place where there is no water. That's like us. Many times, even as Christians, with God on your side, you end up in places where there is no water. That means those places where in life, or those areas of your life, when you look back, where you felt God was not there at all. It just seemed lonely. Well, when you're in those places, this psalm, this verse, will give us a few elements to help us saturate ourselves with God and to feed that thirsty man in those times of dryness. Listen, he says, "Oh God, you are my God." First of all, we know this cannot be a head knowledge. It's an experience knowledge. David had God over him so many times, protecting him from death and feeding him and providing for him. He had experience with God to know that he was a personal God to David. That's something that each of us must say and be able to realize, is that God is experiencing we're experiencing God in our lives, moving and protecting us and giving us what we need. And when you get to that point, you know that God is your God. David also says, early will I seek you. This is key for us. This means that he's prioritizing God. Before any other decision is made, before he has his cup of coffee, before he eats his eggs, before he goes and get that nasty donut that he don't need, he makes sure that he talks with God first. That's a priority because he's earnest about what he's doing. And so I thought about my daughter, 1-year-old daughter. She's earnest to see me when I come in. Long days, everybody else wants different things, but all she wants is me to hold her and acknowledge her. And that's what I think God wants for us, to be early seeking him, prioritizing him over everything else. And then we can truly fulfill that thirst within us. He finally says, my soul thirsts and my flesh hungers. That's a key to us, that each of us want to be fulfilled. Each of us want to have that inner man fed and given those essential things of food and water. But the catch is, he says, for thee. So his soul and his flesh want God. Not other things, not other people's satisfaction, but God. And that's a key for us to realize that when we really want to saturate ourselves, we must want God. And so we find that all people thirst, but only God can satisfy our thirst. So it leaves us with this final question for you. Are you living a satisfied life? Or maybe you're living a there-to-do life. If you choose the there-to-do, barely enough to get by, then you're acting like the 10-year-old's parents who saw decay, saw the pain, but did nothing to help. They're in prison. Where are you? Thank you so much for tuning in. Ask you to come back next time. Until then, God bless.
In the city of Canaan, turn water to wine. He did live, he did die. 3 days later, Jesus Christ did rise. Did it for me and you. This is the truth. Early Sunday morning, the grave let him